Welcome to your If Astrology Isn't Real minisode presented to you by CosmicRx Radio, where I spill the tea on this week's headlines. Politics, pop culture, world events, all written in the stars. Let's dive in. If astrology isn't real, then why, in the final days of Mars and Leo, was there a freaking lion roaming the streets of Rome? And yes, that Mars and Leo square in Uranus. It's also going to bring some more chaos for the week ahead, but I'm going to break down first what happened in the headlines this past week. What are the cosmic receipts behind it? Let's spill some tea. And of course, before I get into all of that, let me introduce myself. I'm Madi Murphy, your high vibe woman, your cosmic consultant. You're just like fellow astrology nerd who is here just trying to make sense of WTF is going on out there through the astrological lens so we can feel empowered, so our nervous systems can be a little bit more regulated, and so we can kind of understand what our own divine assignment is in these wild times. But today's episode, I'm going to chat a little bit about why the Trump administration picked the wrong effing city to try to make an example of this past week with these intense ice raids, and the astrology behind that had me shooketh. It had me shooketh. And we're going to talk a little bit about just some revolutionary artists that I want to shout out who I think are making amazing art in these times, telling the stories we need, speaking up, using their voices, using their platforms in a way that I think is such a shining example of the sweet spot of this celestial moment we're in. But, before I get into all that, we are doing these for the summer on YouTube only. So that means if you're watching this, you're on YouTube. So drop a comment. I think it's kind of fun with the interactive element of YouTube. I love why I started this segment is because I started realizing, wow, how much the planetary patterns outside in the world were showing up in the headlines, in politics, in pop culture, on the world stage. And I just was like, I need to talk this out with someone. Like, I'm going crazy. And I would literally try and bring it up with people who were like, be barely into astrology, and they'd be like, what? I was talking about this with like people in the Dwayne Reed checkout line, and they were not into it. And then finally, some people, besties, my sisters, we will talk like late night. We will literally be looking at the charts of like celebrities, cities, countries, world events, and just like spilling the tea, like how we used to spill the tea, on people in our lives. We're like, okay, that's out, that's low vibe. Let's spill the tea on these world events instead. And then I just started being like, who else wants to talk about this? People in my community were really interested, and it's become such a fun way to connect with so many of you. So if you're here, I'm guessing you're interested in this too. And again, we're never trying to predict the future or really maintain any semblance of control, because as we know, like nothing is certain out there. A lot of it is uncertain, unexpected, and we have to just roll with it. But we have to show up as our best, right? Most aligned, most alive, most truthful, authentic selves to really, I think, use this astrology in a way that's going to serve us and humanity. That's why I do this. Also, it's just funsies. It's funsies, and we need more funsies right about now. Am I right? Okay, so like I said, the crazy, like, militant takeover of LA that we saw this past week, it was giving so much. Saturn and Neptune and Aries, unfortunately, since the beginning of the year, I have been saying, wow, that placement to me feels like some sort of attempt to take over with martial law. And this week I was like, ooh, here it is, unfortunately. And, the Jupiter in Cancer squaring Neptune and Saturn in Aries. I want to talk about the vibrations of astrology for a minute. Like, there's really no such thing as good astrology and bad astrology. It's just weather. So it's like, a crazy torrential downpour might have some people being like, oh my, I really needed this for my crops, right? Or the earth needed some rain, or maybe that rain delayed me going to a baseball game, and by not going to the baseball game, I went to a bookshop, and then I met my future life partner. See, then for some people that rain can be devastating, right? It can knock a tree branch onto their car. It's like, okay, it's all, it can flood someone's basement. It's like the rain isn't good or bad. It's just things are happening with it. But the good thing with astrology is we can be a little bit more empowered to understand, like, okay, the rain is coming. Let me make sure the tree branches are secured around my house. Let me make sure I don't put myself in danger. Oh, it's raining. Great. My garden needs that, or I need to catch up on some stuff in the house. So I'm going to rework my schedule. Is this making sense, this analogy? So this past week, when one of the big defining moments that we're in right now is this Saturn, Neptune and Aries square Jupiter in Cancer. So in the shadow vibration of this, Saturn and Neptune in Aries is like a delusional and rigid like grip on authoritarianism, on totalitarianism. I can never say that word, you know what I'm saying, fascism. It's like this Aries is military, right? Aries is the warrior. Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. But Neptune can be like almost like a delusional sense of really getting it twisted. Like, this is not a good idea, but I have like delusional levels of powers, megalomania. And then Saturn is also like very tied to the patriarchy, to the structures, to the systems that be. And then squaring Jupiter in Cancer can be an intense sense of nationalism, patriotism to a toxic degree, right? Because it's really being expanded there. It can also be very like emotionally fueled. And a square is always when these planets are, they're squaring off. There's a lot of heat, edge, spiciness to them, and that they're kind of like playing off of each other. And so that is a shadow vibration of that. But in the same transit, in the same breath, again, as humans, we're the ones that, especially as we know about astrology, we can choose to be in the higher octave, in the higher consciousness of this. That can also represent Neptune and Aries, like spiritual warriors standing up for what's right. Saturn and Aries saying, if no one else is going to do it, I'm going to goddamn do it. Saturn and Aries is very punk rock. Saturn and Aries, we talked about in the workshop this past week, is like very, it's giving combat boots. It's giving like, I'll get the thing done. I will have a protest sign. And like, I will like, rage against the machine, right? So it's like those two together, and like, I'll take matters into my own hands, and who else is going to do it? And then square Jupiter in Cancer in this way can be like a tidal wave of care, a tidal wave of realizing like everyone is my family, and you are not coming in to fuck with my family. And these people around me, I have way more in common with them in my community than you, right? And you're trying to have me blame immigrants for issues that billionaires cause. Think so. And we're going to circle the wagons and protect ours. And that's exactly what we saw this week in LA. But just to take it one celestial step further with the receipts, which was so cool, is that like, I'm not going to sit here and try to totally make sense of what Trump and his administration and the Stephen Miller creepy kooky men are trying to do here. But I'm thinking like, it was either to like divert and distract from some of the Elon Musk stuff. But I think this plan went back further than that. I think this was, trying to make an example of like, okay, if you want to, protest and stand against us, we're going to bring in, the National Guard troops. We're going to bring in the tear gas, the rubber bullets, some crazy other like really scary military equipment I saw rolling around some of the protest images. And also, we're going to kind of hope you get incited into violence so we can continue to grip down, right? And do the might is right. And we have to like, don't worry, citizens, we're going under martial law because we're here to protect you. I was kind of wondering like what was the angle there, but whatever it was, they picked the wrong city because LA, first and foremost, is an Aries. And again, in the high consciousness energy of Aries is like, you ain't fucking with us, honey. But LA is in Aries. LA has 6 planets in Aries, one of them being Saturn. So LA is in their Saturn return. So that's happening. There's kind of a checking in on, maybe the last 30 years. What have we learned? What are we moving on from? What's karma that's catching up? What new boundaries are we setting, right? How are we growing up in this cycle? But let me see. Also, we have... let me clear my throat. Mercury in Aries, Venus in Aries. So how we communicate our values. We have Saturn in Aries, Uranus in Aries, planet of disruption, Pluto or the underworld in Aries. And so I was like, ooh, that's an interesting choice to try to fuck with this energy. And I think that there's a lot of squares. Like if you're looking at an astrology chart, and there's like red hard lines. The squaring of this is creating a lot of interesting tension with, they have a Mars in Cancer. So Jupiter's now in Cancer and a moon in Capricorn. And essentially what this means is like a Mars in Cancer, there is a kind of an emotionality of fueling through emotions, through community. And I kind of saw that as like, Moon in Capricorn, Moon represents the people. And this is also very literal for LA's astrology in general, right? I feel like everyone goes to LA to learn something about themselves, to initiate something, to become a star, to think about the me. Like Aries is very connected to like the selfie, the self and the selfie. And so I'm like, oh yeah, and then a moon in Capricorn, it makes sense, right? Like I'm here to put myself out there, but there's like a business behind it. So the moon in Capricorn opposite Mars in Cancer felt like this past week, like everyone showing up, the businesses, the people, and kind of being activated by this Aries energy, but protecting each other. And I was like, I really do. I like that a lot. That felt like and I think that the Mars in Cancer
is a fighter, but more of a protector. It's not like an instigator, agitator. They're not going to attack first, but they will defend and protect what is theirs. And that was just some of the stuff I saw on social media. And, I know it's only what you see on social, but it felt like that. And so far as at the time of this recording, there hasn't been any, instances of a protester inciting violence. Because things like stand up. There's all these great tips of how to go to protests and be safe and stand up, or stand up for your neighbors, or stand up if you see something happening in an ICE raid. But like, we don't want to resort to violence because A, bad, and B, it's like, it just gives them an excuse, right, to take things 20 degrees further. So I thought that was kind of cool. And then if you just want to have a little bonus, like something to chew on here, I was like, wow, they made an example of them. And I was like, listen, do not F with this chart. And then also I was like, and don't F with New York City's chart either while I'm at it, because I was like, New York City is a Capricorn. And it had me go back into New York City's chart. And I was like, this is so interesting that New York City is a Capricorn, but with an Aries moon. And I was like, no wonder we have that synergy, that connection, that sisterly city energy of like LA, New York, on the coast, holding it down, where so many people go to cardinal energy, initiate, start something, launch something, discover something about themselves, and like similar, but so different. And that's a good example of that. Even a synastry, like a study of a relationship, when you have like opposite sun and moon signs, there's such a deep connection, but you're also bringing such different like gifts to the table. So then like there's all this like Sag energy in New York City's chart, which makes sense. All the international people here, the dreams, it has the same Mars sign as me, which is probably why I am so lit up by this crazy city, for better or worse. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know, have you ever looked up like the city that you live in, their birth chart, and does it have any connections to yours? Does it make sense? Like, what are we thinking about? Like, these people of LA are not playing. I mean, also it makes so much sense too with like this Aries stellium. This is literally the home of the like fuck the police. And it's like these people will burn it all down before they back down to oppressive systems of authority. So let's not go there. Okay. Okay. So the next thing, I'm not gonna lie, this week was a lot for me. All this energy, this squaring energy. I was Jupiter in Cancer. I was crying a lot. These videos of people being torn away from their families, middle school graduations being raided, stories of foster children being raided and having to represent themselves in immigration court, and also this very Neptune delusional energy right now. I've seen a lot of comments and discourses online. People are like, yeah, but people are here illegally, so what do they expect? First of all, no one is illegal on stolen land, A. But B, even if you're just a little bit more normcore than that and you're not ready to like bust into all of that radical truth, I just want to remind everyone, I am not a lawyer, but I did study a lot of law. In my high school, luckily, had amazing law, constitutional law classes. I'm intrigued by the law. Maybe it's the Virgo in me, okay? I just remind everyone that if you come to this country legally, it is a civil offense, not a criminal offense. You go through, it's basically a misdemeanor. And then you go into a court that's an administrative court, like where you go and you get like a ticket, like a parking ticket or a jaywalking ticket, and then you go in front of an immigration judge, and then they decide the next process, right? So what's happening right now in this country is very illegal. It's basically, if another country was doing it, we'd be reading headlines about how we are sinking into like a regime. This is like a dictatorship. You can't just snatch people up off the street, put them in a van. That is kidnapping. And then deporting them to El Salvador, that is human trafficking. Our country was founded on a few really, I think, principles that are beautiful in concept and ideology, checks and balances. One of them is due process. Without due process, we are nothing. And if you think that if this continues on without someone standing up, and it's not going to affect you one day in some way, I apologize. I have to hold your hand when I say this, but that is Delulu and not in the fun way, okay? So just a little heads up, okay? And the astrology, like I said, it's not good or bad, it's what we make of it. So what can we learn in these moments? I think the Saturn, Neptune, and Aries, the Jupiter and Cancer, they're like standing up, speaking out, holding each other, this community. Like, listen, the astrology of this upcoming week, this actually leads me to my next point. If you're in a major city, if you're anywhere, if you're in the DC area for sure, we have this coming weekend, the Donald Trump military parade, which is like, I honestly can't even talk about it. My head just hurts so much because we've had some not great presidents in our time, but no one's ever been so flagrant as to spend like millions and millions and millions and millions of dollars on a military parade when the economy is struggling and people can't afford eggs, first of all. And also in a way that's like, what other leaders have military parades that are not fascists? I don't know. I'm just like, correct me if I'm wrong here, But then Trump's chart, he's been going through some astrology. It started around April 20th. It's going to continue to culminate, and it's going to continue to build up. June 16th is a little checkpoint. July 7th. These are major reckoning points. The tides are going to turn hard against him. Something's going to happen. And I wish I could say it was like, oh, this is really good for us. But again, nothing's really good or bad. But this is going to, I think, bring in more chaos and uncertainty. And I just encourage everyone during, these military parade. There's also this No King's Day, which is so cool. A lot of cities are holding protests. Mars and Leo. So Mars and Leo, Mars, god of war. Leo is the sign of like the king, right? Rulership, kind of a single-handed rulership, is squaring Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus is disruptions, it's shakeups, it's wake-ups. And Uranus and Taurus was one of the players, along with Mars and Taurus, along with Regulus, that was involved in the astrology of the middle of July when Trump had the ear incident in Pennsylvania. I'm just like, ooh, there's something about, I've been waking up a little anxious the past few days. I just wanted to share this to like with you. Keep your head on a swivel, be safe, stay in your discernment. Like if you just feel like an energy is off, trust that, leave public spaces. Just in general, people are already, I think, at a kind of fever pitch. And like, I just want to say that again, I'm not trying to evoke fear, but I just think that this astrology helps us be aware, be prepared. And oh my God, just the astrology of like, yeah, it's just, it's giving bad crowd energy, possible like crowd surges, crowd crushes, even aircraft related incidences, on top of people being sort of like ready to go. The collective pot, right, is reaching a boiling point. So yeah, I just want everyone to be safe. Some of you were asking for the charts of other people. Like I looked at Stephen Miller's chart and I'm literally disturbed by it. I'm just, it's giving karmic headache moment. And I think that I like just generally peeked at some of the people in Trump's cabinet. Everyone has some interesting karmic catch-up moments, little oppositions happening. So I'm like, you all need a better astrologer or an astrologer to guide you and help you understand, like, you are laying down some really heavy bad karma that you're going to catch up to probably in this lifetime. And then something I thought was interesting that someone brought up in our Saturn in Aries workshop, shout out to Corey Cutler, is that Gavin Newsom has his Saturn in Aries right now. So he's going through Saturn return, and an interesting, Saturn, the sign of government in Aries. And, as he's connected to this very, energy we just talked about of LA and California as a whole. And I think he's going to be getting some really big leadership tests over the next years. So, but I feel like mixed bag, right? I don't love any politician, but the one thing that I'll say is like, he's the only politician who's like unhinged, going toe to toe with, or at least governors with, and there's something there that I'm like, grab the popcorn, I'm here for it. So let's just keep our eyes on there. Let's continue to see how this Aries and Cancer energy is showing up and observing, like, how does the square feel? And again, please be safe while Mars is squaring Uranus over the next few days. So shifting gears, let's talk about, I was talking about popcorn. Let's talk about pop culture. Let's end on a high note. I want to talk about my cosmic baddies rising, my cosmic revolutionaries on the rise. Let's talk about Dochi for a minute, and let's just say, can we protect Dochi at all costs? In my Saturn return workshop, I was talking about, the revolutionary artist, and this is a big reason why I wrote in the Cosmic Zone. I love working with, cultural innovators, thought leaders, makers, yeeters, people who want to approach business, art, living differently, who want to reimagine new ways of doing things. And, astrology can be such a good map and a blueprint, especially because the old maps, the old blueprints are clearly defunct and not working anymore. So, and I love empowering this new wave of artists to think about, like, yeah, it's my art. It's like, but also there's the collective energy, right? It's the Leo, the me, what I'm creating from the heart, what am I here to say, but also working with the Aquarius of it all. Like, how is this moving the needle forward? How is this helping us, again, create a better society for all? How is this helping us to progress, right? And so Dochi And this week, if you missed it, used her first big, huge BET Awards moment as a call for justice. Like, and there's just so many celebrities who don't do that, or if they say something, it's just a little like loop. But she called it out. She's like, right outside these doors. Let's talk about what's happening. You know, being in LA, and then she shouted out like Gaza. Like, she wasn't afraid to do that, and that is something that she really used her voice in a way that I thought was beautiful. And of course, she has her Pluto in Sag, so she's Gen Z generation. And we had that Sag full moon, was really lighting that up. Pluto and Sag, in their best high vibrating octave, is they're here to disrupt. They're here to speak their truth teller, Sagittarius energy. They're here to like not hold back in terms of like thinking of truth seeking, blowing down the walls on what was previously possible, right? Like Capricorn is authority and tradition, and Sagittarius is like, let's actually go further. Let's think of new ways of being. Let's find freedom for all. As a country, we're a Sagittarius rising, so we're supposed to be that like liberty, justice, freedom for all, the place of the dreamers. And so I like the Sag full moon, like lighting up her Pluto and Sag. It was almost like illuminating, like, oh, this is what a really cool aspect of the Pluto and Sag generation could be like, could look like. We could talk about the shadow of Pluto and Sag. I could do a shadow for all the generations. If you don't know, it's helpful on FYI. All the generations, the boomers, the Gen X, the millennials, the Gen Z, the Gen Alphas, they all correlate to Pluto cycles in the most literal and fun way. And it helps me understand these generations so much better. And then on top of that, Dochi also has this beautiful like Leo energy, Sun in Leo rising. Let me see, just plan for chart. I just Googled Dochi chart, and like a billboard, like a whatever chart came up first. I'm like, guys, is that really what we think of? We think of charts still? Come on, get with it. Get in the revolution, the cosmic revolution. I'm looking for her birth chart. But yeah, so she has her Sun and her Mercury, her Venus, all very close to her ascendant in Leo. So she's a Leo stellium. So like what I was just saying about this balance of the Leo and the Aquarius, I think is illustrated so beautifully through her chart. And she is also a North node in Virgo, which means that she is going through her nodal opposition right now. It's not let me see what degree it is on here. She has her North node in 1 degree of Virgo. So her actual like exact nodal opposition will be closer to next summer, 2026. But we talked about in the Saturn return workshop, the nodal opposition is a time where you're connected more to your purpose, to rethink things, to go on a new path. And if that's you, if you have a North node in Virgo, congrats, you're in your nodal opposition or your reverse nodal return as well. If you want to learn more about that, let me know in the comments, or you could check out the Saturn Return Workshop, kind of understand what's ahead for you. But another thing, and this is where I'll leave you, that I talked about in the Saturn Return Workshop is like these cohorts that we enter with our Saturn group. We're here to go through the Saturn return, which is a rite of initiation. We have to learn things, but to grow up, we have to kind of understand these obstacles, turn them into opportunities, step more into our power. But it's like, and then after we go through our Saturn return, we still hold that Saturn energy of whatever that sign is, right? Like I'm a Saturn in Scorpio. And then we're here to use that and to bring it out in the world and to kind of, I believe, be part of building a better world using that Saturn, that cohort. And I thought it was really cool. If anybody has not watched it, I highly recommend it. I'm all about revolutionary art, and I think that entertainment and storytelling is like the way that we're going to create a better world for all of us, because I think either people just, we've lost so much touch with each other in terms of empathy. We're so divided. It's so hard to put ourselves in someone else's shoes, especially if you don't have that open heart and that curiosity to do it. Like the people that need to be reading certain books or watching certain documentaries, they ain't doing it, or like they don't have access or connection to certain people in their communities. They were raised to fear certain groups of people. In honor of Pride Month, I was like, it's just really cool to see storytelling enter a mainstream from a perspective of a really nuanced and cool character. And I'm talking about Overcompensating with Benny Drama. Benito, I am so proud of you. If someone knows and pass this along, I thought that Overcompensating is exactly what the revolutionary art we need right now. He's a Scorpio, just like my baby Scorpio. So I love that, this kind of subversive, fun take on this show, and the Overcompensating, essentially he's a closeted gay man in a college campus trying to figure out, his identity, while still sort of, again, overcompensating and being this really almost hilarious, like, satire of bro culture, of frat culture, of just heteronormative culture in general. But it's funny. Again, it's subversive. It's very Scorpio. But he has a Saturn in Aquarius, and this is peak Saturn in Aquarius brilliance to me. Like, in my work, I am being very Aquarian, very progressive, very disruptive. And there's also this like radical joy to all of it. I couldn't find his full birth chart. I just know by his age that he's a Saturn in Aquarius. If anybody like has more of his birth info, let me know. But yeah, I think that like I would love to read. I would love to be a cosmic consultant for Benny Drama. I did see somewhere online that he might have had a Gemini moon, which would make sense because, like, Jupiter's finishing up this run in Gemini. To have his show come out in the final days of Jupiter in Gemini would be such an if astrology isn't real moment. When he blew up on Instagram and TikTok is when I found him during the pandemic. The North Node, the destiny line, was in Gemini. It rules social media, humor, media in general. Just this like fun, playful, non-binary, like, let's be fluid and let's question everything, but have fun when we do it. Kind of magnetic messaging, cosmic communicator, connector vibes that I think that he embodies so well. So I'm like, that would make sense to me. But if anybody has more information, if anybody knows Benny Drama, like, I will do shameless plug right now for like, I would love to work with you or just connect with you or just give you your flowers. Same thing with Dochi. But anyways, this is what astrology looks like in action. This is what radical, beautiful astrology looks like, living your chart from the heart, aligned with your truth, and our larger truth, right? This is like using your expansion for collective liberation, using your personal transformation for planetary transformation. And again, it's not always perfect. It's not linear, but this is cosmic leadership. This is what I love to do with people. This is, the activism aligned with your purpose and the planets, and I'm obsessed with it, and it's fun. Yes, if astrology isn't real, how come it's just keeps being so in line with all of this cosmic chaos so clearly? But more importantly, how come this astrology right now is so literal with showing us the map of how to rise through it? And just as a reminder, astrology doesn't decide things, doesn't decide our fate, our fortune, but it offers us this great map where we can enjoy the journey a little bit more, right? So yeah, comment below, give me some fire emojis if you're feeling all this Aries energy. Drop below. I still might do a part 2 separate video on the Trumpster's birth chart. It's because there's a lot going on in there. It's making me a little nervous in the upcoming weeks. I can't tell if I want to do it or don't want to do it. We can bring some more receipts of anyone that you want to hear about, or just let me know how you're doing. Let me know the astrology isn't real moments you see in the headlines. All my, cosmic field reporters out there. And of course, stay safe, stay in your magic, and I'll see you next week. Do you love getting your Cosmic RX for the week here and want more? Make sure to sign up for our premium subscription so you can get exclusive access to bonus podcast episodes, all of my astrology info for the month ahead, and live new and full moon calls to help you manifest your dream life with an intentional international community of other cosmic baddies. Sign up through our link in show notes. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you want to know more about Cosmic RX, head on over to thecosmicrx.com. And if you really love this show, I'd love it if you left a rating and review on Apple Podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. I super love hearing from you and reading your reviews. All right, you cosmic baddie, tune in next week. And until then, remember, love yourself fully, work your magic, and take no shit.